Hello, today we're going to make some pumpkins just in time for Halloween. Start out by using 15 to 20-second royal icing in white or orange. Today I'm going to do one white pumpkin and one orange pumpkin, and outline your pumpkins. Include the section in the center. So your pumpkin will basically have like 3 parts. Add a squiggle of icing to the center so that it helps prevent cratering. Now do the same thing with the orange pumpkin and outline it with your orange royal icing. It doesn't matter if your outlined sections are perfect. No pumpkins are perfect, and sometimes the more odd they are, the better they look. Now fill in the center sections of both the white and the orange pumpkins. I use the same consistency icing for outlining and flooding. Just kind of wiggle your icing around to help it settle a little bit. Let the cookie dry for at least 5 to 10 minutes. Now let's fill in the rest of the sections. Go ahead and flood the other 2 parts of the orange cookie with your orange royal icing. And then you're going to repeat the process with the white pumpkin. Use a scribe or a toothpick to get the frosting down into the little corners at the bottom and the top of these sections. Although remember, any imperfections on your pumpkin will just make it that much more perfect. You can also use a very slightly damp paintbrush to kind of wiggle the icing down into those crevices. Let dry for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And now for the fun part, the details. Let's start by giving our pumpkin some leaves or vines. And the way I like to do this is I have a detail consistency icing, a little bit stiffer than piping icing, I guess you could say. And I'm just going to squeeze a big dot of icing right here, and because it's a little stiffer, I'm going to kind of jiggle it as I go to help it settle down. And I get the dot where I want, I'm going to let up a little bit and squeeze a line where I want the rest of my stem to go. And I'm going to make another dot, and again kind of just jiggle it around a bit and stop squeezing entirely and drag it over to the line I made. And another dot. Stop squeezing and drag. Another dot. Stop squeezing and drag. I'm going to add another branch over here. I'm going to make my dot. Stop squeezing. Another dot. Stop squeezing. And just drag your icing over. Another dot. Stop squeezing. Drag. Another dot. Stop squeezing. Drag. Another dot. Stop squeezing. Drag it over. And now if you have little peaks that you don't want to show, you can take your scribe or your toothpick and kind of just jiggle them into place so that they don't stand out. In nature, it's all good. And maybe one more line over here. So I'll make my dot, and then I'll actually keep squeezing and make a line over to where the rest of them connect. Squeeze a dot, stop squeezing, drag it over, and kind of we'll stick one down here. A big dot, stop squeezing, drag it over, and one more dot. Now to make the flowers for the center, you can either make them ahead of time on a piece of parchment. You can use a flower nail if you want. Sometimes that makes it easier depending on what kind of flower you're doing. And the best way to do that is just to stick some icing on your nail and then put your piece of parchment down. And I have a star tip on my bag. My icing is pretty stiff. It's a number 13, but you could use 14, 15, 16, whatever you have. And you just want to start in the center and go around. Stop squeezing when you have it the size you want it and drag it off. Now if you have a little bit like this that sticks out, you can take a very slightly damp paintbrush and just kind of tuck it back in there. And then you'd want to set this aside to dry. And you could also make some other kinds of flowers by changing out your tip. I have a very, very small rose tip. It's a 101S and some very stiff icing. And if you want to do that, you want to do it with the fat side pointing down. And I'm just going to make a flower kind of like these orange ones here. And you just want to squeeze as hard as you can, go up, and come back down. Cut it off. Squeeze as hard as you can, go up, come back down while kind of turning your wheel or your nail. Squeeze up, come back down, squeeze up, come back down, kind of making it upside down U shape. Squeeze up, come back down. And again, if you need to tuck anything under, a very slightly damp paintbrush or even your Scribe and or a toothpick kind of help you do that. Now I like to let these dry, and I only put the centers on after I put them on my cookie, because that way I can match the center to whatever I might be doing. And then one final flower that I like to make, and you can make these right on your cookie, or you can make them ahead of time and let them dry before you put them on your cookie. And this one's just a simple daisy type shape. Make a dot, probably make like 5 dots in a circle shape. And then take your Scribe or your toothpick and drag your dots into the center. I had a little bit of green on my Scribe. And again, just let that dry. But today I'm going to do it right on my cookie. So I'm going to put my star tip back on. And my yellow icing is very, very stiff. I'm just going to start in the center and swirl it around. Until about there. And drag it off. Now I think I'll go ahead and add a couple of orange ones next to that. My orange icing isn't quite as stiff as my yellow. And I want these ones to be really small. Just tuck that in. And there you have it. Now let's do the white one. I'm going to start with a big ball of frosting, kind of jiggling it because it's stiff. And I'm going to make my line. Another big ball of frosting. Stop pressure, stop squeezing, and drag it over. Put a little one right here. Stop squeezing, drag it over. Squeeze, stop squeezing, drag it over. Squeeze, stop squeezing, drag it over. And one more here. And maybe I'll add a big branch right down the middle. All of your pumpkins can look a little bit different. They don't have to be the same. Keeps it fun, keeps it interesting. Squeeze, stop squeezing, drag it over. 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 Let's see, maybe this time I'll go ahead and add one of these flowers that's already done. It's already dry, so put a dollop of frosting where you want it. Stick it in there. And then maybe I'll go ahead and do a couple of these that are already dry. Use my Scribe tool to kind of get it where I want it, and then I'll press it down. That one's a little bit big. So maybe we'll just do this over here. Slide it down, looks like I don't want it so tall. And let's add some warts to this pumpkin, or bumps on the pumpkin. So I usually start with at least 3 dots if I'm going to do dots, and then I'll put a couple more in other places. That's it for this one. Oh, and let's put a center. Maybe I should do white. And there you have it. 3 cute little pumpkins. I hope you have fun making these. If you do or have any questions, please leave me a note in the comments. Let me know how your pumpkins came out, or let me know if you have questions. Thanks. See you next time.